A shallow violet halo hung above each shelf in the grand stack, and dust motes drifted through the light like lazy snow. To the uninitiated, the glow was whimsical, but to every employee of the Imperial Library, it was a warning. The halo brightened whenever a title on that shelf was overdue, and recent years had turned the long room into something close to dawn-soft, alarming, relentless. Lathandra Hale, third-rank archivist, hurried beneath the lilac shimmer with a leather satchel slapping at her hip. The skin at her wrists had begun to spot like autumn leaves. Yesterday, those freckles were not there. Yesterday, she could still taste strawberries if she closed her eyes. Today, she could barely recall the tang. "Morning, Lice," Orrin Belmer called from a rolling ladder halfway up a case marked Devotion Miscellany. His smile looked rehearsed, deferential to the quiet. Perhaps it was also there to reassure her. The climb, the search, the ache in his own joints were all normal. Everything was normal in a library where lateness cost you time. She answered with a breathless wave. "I checked the register again. Pearls of Winter still hasn't been returned." Orrin's shoulders slumped. "I was afraid you'd say that." And the claimant disappeared, or died. The ledger only says she was 62 the day she borrowed it. Lice gripped the edge of a reading table. That was 14 years ago. He descended the ladder with the stateliness of someone nursing invisible bruises. Under the near-perpetual twilight, he seemed older than 35. Streaks of silver in his dark hair, a faint quiver in his left hand. Those changes had accelerated since the last time they pursued an absconded volume. For him, emotion was the first casualty. He forgot songs that once made him cry, novels that kept him laughing after curfew. Now his memories of romance, of breath shared on winter air, of trembling vows faded as though bleached by sunset. The library's curse was simple chemistry, according to the historians. Books borrowed from the Imperial bound themselves to the reader's life force. The longer the separation, the more years siphoned. Patrons were encouraged to return titles promptly, but occasionally a runaway forgot, or tried to cheat the system, or perished elsewhere, leaving the book trapped in the world, draining both borrower and, by slow degrees, the archivists sworn to the collection. "For your sake, we need that novel," Liz said. She tried to keep her tone professional, but Orrin's wince betrayed how personal it felt. "For our sake," he corrected. "You're the one sprouting constellations on your arms." She tugged her sleeves lower. "I still remember how it feels to fall in love." "You're starting to describe it like an academic abstraction. That bad?" His eyebrows rose. "Yesterday you asked whether ardor involved an increase in basal temperature." She managed a brittle grin. "Not a good sign." Orrin rubbed his jaw and, through habit, looked upward. Above them was the Heart Wing, the restricted mezzanine that held manuscripts rumored to shift their own paragraphs at night. Beyond that, buried under 6 floors, lay the reliquary. Seldom visited because the staircases rearranged themselves for amusement. Any of those places could be hiding Pearls of Winter. He exhaled. "Let's requisition a search scroll before the registrar closes for luncheon." Isandra adjusted her satchel. "Lead the way before I forget why we're hurrying." The registrar's clock. The registrar's office was nested in a glass turret overlooking the Atrament Sea, and its keeper, Madame Waisois, despite the circumstances, only middle-aged. She limited her own exposure to the curse by refusing to leave her desk. Record sheets rippled across her tabletop like scales. Orrin bowed. "We request an augmented tracking scroll. The subject is one copy of Pearls of Winter by Hanine Crisel." Madame West shuffled papers with talon-like nails dyed library violet. "Lost romance? Ah, yes. It has cost us 49 cumulative years so far." She glanced at Lice, then Orrin. "Primarily yours." "We're aware," Lice said, aware too of the dryness in her voice. Sometimes dryness felt safer than panic. The registrar tapped a brass needle gauge beside her ledger. The dial swung to 60, then dipped. "Radiant signature is weak but present," Level 4 dispersion. That narrows your search radius to the southern quadrants, Heartwing, Seraphic Gallery, and the Reliquary. Any chance the borrower's spirit lingered? We could ask her to bring it back. Expired 3 winters ago, Wiss said. We located the body. No book upon it. Orin accepted the tracking scroll, rolled tight like a wand of parchment wound around a crystal core. We'll find it. For your sake, Wiss said, do so quickly. Feeling is the first to go, but the body follows, and neither of you has time to waste. Outside, the hallway smelled of ink and fennel polish. Lies unfolded her half of the scroll, its dotted lines pulsed faintly southward. Heartwing first? Orin nodded. Heartwing. Hey, Louis! The Heartwing's reverie, the staircase to the restricted mezzanine, uncoiled like a serpent when Orin uttered the passphrase, "Memory is the price of forgetting." Steps of white oak widened until two could walk abreast. Halfway up, Lace felt colder. A hush deeper than silence took residence in her ears. The curse was thicker here. At the summit, shelves curved in concentric arcs under a glass dome shot through with prisms. Light fell in shards of color across carpets embroidered with hearts, an old joke by the founders. Few dared linger. Lice sensed why. Every shelf vibrated with the ache of untold stories. Empathy pulsed like static electricity. They began scanning spines. Orin's scroll flared whenever he neared a match. Romance, bindings, gold-stamped with wreaths of laurel, antique poetry, fraudulent memoirs of heartbreak. But the flare remained dull lavender, not the true azure that would confirm the target. As they worked, Lice observed Orin. His face rarely changed expression anymore. Concentration and boredom looked the same. She remembered evenings he spent reenacting tragic sonnets for junior trainees, weeping on command to demonstrate literary catharsis. Last month he shrugged when those trainees asked why lovers wrote letters at all. A dread whispered, what if retrieving the novel only stops further decay? What if what's lost is lost? She shook off the thought. Look. Her finger brushed the leather back of a slim volume near a ceiling alcove. Pearls of... but no. Pearls in the Summer Tides. Wrong title. Orin sighed. False match. He rubbed the bridge of his nose as though recalibrating details. My recollection of the cover art diminishes by the hour. Describe it anyway. White vellum, maybe? A winter landscape? Two silhouettes holding a garland? Or was it a compass? He laughed without mirth. See? Holes. Lice wanted to seize his hands, to promise she'd plug those holes if it meant tearing cloth from her own memories. Instead, she rested a palm on his shoulder. We'll find it. Just then, the scroll brightened, burned sapphire. Both archivists froze. The glow pointed not to a shelf, but to a reading niche behind a brocade curtain. Someone was humming there, softly. Orin parted the curtain. The seat was empty, but the air thrummed with recent presence. On the cushion lay a single pearl, the size of a robin's egg, luminous as moonlit milk. Lysandra's breath caught. A clue? Orin's eyes unfocused. Or a trap? He touched the pearl. The humming became a gust, swirling pages from open tomes. Shadows spilled across the niche, coalescing into the faint outline of a woman in a hooded traveling cloak. Her mouth moved without sound. Around her form unspooled a ribbon of text. Lines Liz recognized from Cressel's novel. They met upon the threshold of dawn, where ice melted beneath their names. It's the book, Liz whispered, or its memory. Orin tried to grasp the apparition, but his hand slipped through vapor. The scroll's light dimmed. The shade bowed, released the pearl, and dissolved into glitter. The pearl cracked in two. Inside was nothing. Orin's shoulders sagged. An echo only. But it proves the book was here, Liz argued. Maybe it was carried farther down. She checked the scroll. Pulsing again, still southward. Seraphic Gallery next. Orin gave the niche one last wistful glance. Lead on. 3 R. The Seraphic Gallery's lament. The gallery was an oubliette masquerading as an art museum. Murals hung between stacks of ecclesiastical histories. Marble seraphs posed mid-slight above tables of illuminated codices. The air smelled of frankincense and grief. Scholars said the gallery amplified whatever emotion a visitor had most neglected. Lys felt growing anxiety turn to a tremor of devotion. To the library, to her profession, to Oren. She wondered what the room did to him. They navigated between sculptures. The scroll shimmered teal closer. At a dais encircled by cherubs, Oren halted. "Do you hear that?" "Hear what?" "A voice. Someone saying my name." She listened, only the hush of turning pages, distant footsteps. It might be the gallery. He stepped toward a fluted column where an alcove hid a kneeling statue. As he neared, marble feathers rippled, the figure's face unfurled into living flesh. An older woman with crow's feet and loving eyes. "Mother," Oren breathed. Lys's pulse spiked. His mother had died when he was 11. The apparition opened her arms. "Sweet boy," she said. "You've forgotten how to love. Come home." Oren's eyes glazed. Lys seized his coat sleeve. "It's not real. The gallery is preying on you." He didn't fight her, but he didn't move. Tears welled. At least tears meant feeling remained. "I missed her," he choked. The statue's arms lengthened unnaturally. Marble fingers became tendrils of opal mist. "You can rest," it coaxed. "Give me the scroll. Give me the weight." Lys realized it wanted the tracking charm. If they surrendered it, the book would be lost forever, and Oren's capacity for love along with it. She yanked him back. "Remember the vow," she reminded. "Custodians above all, knowledge above comfort." Oren squeezed his eyes shut. The gallery trembled, murals warping. The false mother hissed, subterranean wind. Oren took one shaky step toward Lys. The statue cracked, color draining into the floor. When silence returned, he looked decades older. Gray now dominated his temples, but he still clutched the scroll. "Let's leave before it tries again." They hurried on. The scroll's glow intensified with each corridor until they reached a downward spiral staircase lined by portraits of librarians who'd aged into dust while on shift. At its base, the sign read "Reliquary, authorized personnel only. Return all hope before entry." "Can't tell if that's literal," Lys muttered. Oren managed a faint smirk. "Probably. For V." The reliquary's bargain. The reliquary was colder than the rest of the library. The lastites of ice hung from stone arches. Fog coiled around ankles. The scroll blazed royal blue now, forge hot, necessary. Shelves here kept no order. They rearranged around seekers, floating on rails, testing resolve. Words on spines swapped languages. To navigate, one had to give something. A memory, a promise. The library was greedy but also fair. At the first junction, a revolving bookcase blocked their path, refusing to budge. Until library was greedy but also fair. At the first junction, a revolving bookcase blocked their path, refusing to budge until Lys pressed her palm to a brass plate. Fane, too. Runes ignited offer? She thought about giving the memory of her first kiss behind a ground house. She'd been 15, dizzy, elated. As the idea formed, her freckles darkened. A warning. The library might take more than requested. "No," Oren said, reading her expression. "I'll pay this toll." He whispered into the mechanism. Lys couldn't parse the words, but his voice quivered. The bookcase slid aside, they continued. After several turns, the scroll pulsed violently, its glow leaking like smoke toward a low archway sealed by iron vines. In the vine's center, embedded like a heart, sat a single crystalline lock. Within that lock floated a miniature winter scene. Snowed hills, a frozen lake, two miniature figures standing on a bridge. Lys recognized the illustration from the old catalogs. Pearls of winter. "It's inside that lock." But the vines sensed them and tightened. Thorns glistened, an inscription appeared. Return what was borrowed. Oren swallowed. The borrower is dead. What can we return? Something equivalently precious, Lay said, something that fulfills the contract. She glanced at Oren, then at her own hands. She felt the rasp of paper dust on her skin, smelt cold parchment. She cherished all these sensations and feared losing them, but she feared more the void creeping behind Oren's eyes. She opened her satchel and drew out her field journal, thick with pressed daisies, ticket stubs, and little scribbles of emotion, a lifetime party of experiences. She placed it at the base of the vines. Nothing happened. Oren touched her shoulder. It wants feeling, love, not relics. Return what was borrowed. The novel is love distilled. We have to offer love. He squared himself toward the lock and closed his eyes. Listen, I have loved this library since I could read, but it's a cold love. Admiration, obedience. You taught me warmth. The way you sneak honeyed tea past the no beverage rule, the way you argue with catalog ghosts until they alphabetize properly. His voice cracked. When the memory began to fade, I panicked less about losing myself than about losing you. And I refuse. So I return to you now, the devotion stolen from us. Lissandra's throat tightened. Oren. A pulse of light rippled from his chest to the vines. They shuddered. Frost crawled backward, vines unfurling. The loch's miniature landscape brightened, but Oren staggered. Color bled from his cheeks. Lice caught him. Stop, you're giving too much, he smiled, fragile. The feeling was always yours. Consider it retuned. The lock cracked. Glass rained upward, reforming into pages that fluttered like swans, landing gently into Lice's free hand. Pearls of Winter. The binding was supple, white leather, embossed with silver script. Even closed, it radiated promise. Laughter in snow, fingertips warmed by breath. Triumph surged, but panic followed. Oren's eyes were closed, lips blue. Lice gripped the book. Undo the cost, she begged the reliquary. Take the novel, end the debt, the shelves tremored. An unseen bell tolled. Vines reknitted themselves into an arch of roses blooming pale. Warmth spilled through the corridor. Orne inhaled sharply, eyelids twitching open. Color returned, though streaks of gray remained. He blinked. Did it work? She pressed Pearls of Winter to his chest. Open it. The first chapter. They sat on a low bench while lamps overhead brightened in gentle sequence. Liz opened the novel. Inside, the dedication read, To every heart that listens, to every hand that holds. As pages turned, a swirl of frost and petals danced around the readers. The library's curse fed on absence, on the distance between book and borrower. But presence, too, had magic. As they held the volume, the years stolen seeped back the way tide returns to shore. Liz watched freckles fade from brown to soft gold, then vanish. Saw Oren's posture strengthen, silver recede to smoldering brown. They didn't return entirely. To use some cost must linger as reminder, but they met again at the age they'd been the day the borrower failed to return her book. Both 33, joints supple, hearts thunderous. Oren exhaled like a man waking from a fever dream. I remember the garland. It was made of periwinkle. They exchanged it before parting at the train station. And the compass, Lisa added, tears slipping unheeded, hides it in her pocket so she can find her way back. Oren curled a lock of her hair behind her ear. I remember everything. Outside the reliquary, the halo above shelves dimmed by a shade. 50 years of arrears settling into equilibrium. In coming days, the light would wane further as other overdue volumes were reclaimed. Progress, slow, luminous. Lies closed the book, but kept her hand against its cover. Come, last task. They ascended through corridors now bright as midday, returned to Madame Wiz's turret. The registrar looked up, astonished. She consulted her gauge, which had spun to 0. Impressive. Liz slid the romance across the desk. Returned on behalf of the late Sarah Elcor. Apologies for the delay. Wiss checked the date. stamped received, and shelved the novel behind glass. "The library thanks you," she said, voice softer than Liz had ever heard. "So do I." VI, the late shift night visited the Imperial Library like velvet. Desk lamps glowed amber. Patrons whispered over epics and atlases. Orin and Liz could have finished their shift, cataloged the retrieval, and gone home to separate apartments scented with camphor. Instead, they carried 2 mugs of honeyed tea to a deserted alcove overlooking the Atrament Sea. Outside, waves struck the seawall in silver parabola. Inside, lice open pearls of winter again. Orin sat beside her, shoulder to shoulder, knees knocking. "Chapter 5, she suggested. "Where they finally confess." He grinned sheepishly. "It's my favorite." "Mine too." Lice began to read aloud. Her voice traveled like warm smoke. Soon a hush wrapped the alcove, not of forbidding, but of welcome. The quiet that grows between hearts, a space filled with the possible. At the chapter's pivotal line, he dared the chill, braved the years, and offered her forever. Orin slipped his hand over hers. She paused. The paragraph waited patiently. He said, "I know how it feels now." Basal temperature unchanged. A small laugh. "But my chest is aflame." She cracked a smile, tears blurred to sparkle. "See? No compass required." Their lips met, tentative, then sure. Around them, no halo brightened, no clock advanced. Love, offered on time, accrued no debt. It simply was. When they parted, Liz continued reading, though both knew the words by heart. Somewhere above, unseen windows opened, letting spring air into winter chambers. The library, vast and ancient, listened to the cadence and, for once, asked nothing in return. They read until dawn, until the roselight of sun-drowned violet glows, until the story's last page turned and the Imperial Library sighed in satisfaction. And when the day shift arrived, they found 2 archivists, asleep beneath a romance novel, cheeks flushed not with age, but with promise. No fine was issued. Some stories, after all, are meant to be kept forever.